In a quiet village surrounded by tall palm trees and red earth roads, there lived a woman named Sandra. Her house sat at the edge of the village, a small mud house with a cracked wall and a tired-looking roof that leaked whenever rain fell. Life had not been kind to her, and her heart had grown harder with every passing year. Sandra had 2 daughters, Lucy and Sophia. Lucy, the first, was full of life. She was tall, bright, and carried herself like someone born for good things. People in the village often said she looked exactly like her late father, strong, bold, and beautiful. Then there was Sophia, the last child, pale, thin, and quiet. She had been sick from the very day she came into the world, and that sickness had never truly left her. Their father died when Sophia was barely a year old. He had gone to the city to buy goods for his small business, but never returned. A car accident took him away, leaving Sandra to raise 2 children alone. At first, she tried her best. She sold food at the market, fetched firewood, and took small jobs just to feed them. But as the years went by, Sophia's health became a constant battle, and with every hospital visit, Sandra's hope and love for her faded. Sophia's life became a circle of pain and medicine. One week she would recover, the next she would fall sick again. Sandra sold her jewelry, her wrappers, and even borrowed money from neighbors, hoping to save her child. The debt grew, but Sophia never got better. The doctor said her body was weak. They gave Sandra more pills, more injections, more bills. Nothing changed. One evening, Sandra sat outside the house, counting the last few coins in her hand. Lucy sat beside her, painting her nails. Inside, Sophia coughed weakly from her mat. Sandra's eyes darkened. "This girl has eaten all my money," she muttered bitterly. "Since the day she was born, peace left my life. Maybe if she dies, I'll finally rest." Lucy said nothing. She only sighed and shook her head. Deep down, she pitied her sister, but she also loved the comfort her mother gave her. So she stayed quiet. Sophia, lying inside, heard those words. She pressed her face into her pillow, tears soaking through the thin cloth. Her heart broke again, not from sickness this time, but from pain that no medicine could cure. Sandra's hatred grew stronger with each passing day. Whenever she looked at Sophia, she saw loss, the husband she buried, the debt she carried, the life she could never live. Even her neighbors began to notice. "Sandra," old Mama Grace once said, "don't curse your own blood." She didn't choose to be sick. Sandra snapped. "Easy for you to say. You didn't sell all your clothes to pay hospital bills. You didn't borrow money and become a laughingstock because of a child who can't stay healthy for 2 days." That night, as the wind howled and the oil lamp flickered, Sophia sat alone by the window. She watched the stars through the cracked glass and whispered a prayer only heaven could hear. "God, please, if I'm the reason my mother is suffering, then take me away. But if there's still a reason I'm alive, please show me." Her voice was faint, trembling like the flame in the lamp. Outside, Sandra lay on her mat beside Lucy, her heart heavy with bitterness. She didn't know that the child she despised most was praying for her peace. As the months rolled by, Sandra's heart grew colder toward her younger daughter. She no longer saw Sophia as her child, but as a burden, a shadow that followed her everywhere, reminding her of wasted money and sleepless nights. The little hope she once had for Sophia's recovery had died. She had sold her gold earrings, pawned her wrapper, and borrowed money from everyone she knew. Yet, Sophia's sickness refused to leave. The medicine bottles on the small shelf in their kitchen became a symbol of failure. Every time Sandra saw them, she felt her anger rise. One afternoon, she threw one of the bottles at the wall. "Enough," she shouted. "I'm done wasting my life on you." Sophia stood trembling near the door, her small frame shaking with fear. "Mama, I'm sorry," she whispered. Sandra turned to her, her eyes cold. "Sorry for what? Sorry for being a curse? Sorry for draining my blood and my money? You should have died the day you were born. Maybe I would have had peace." From that day, Sandra stopped caring for her. She no longer forced her to take medicine. Sometimes when she cooked, she gave Sophia the leftover pieces, bones, watery soup, or nothing at all. Lucy, now in her early 20s, had become her mother's pride. Sandra poured all her love into her. She bought her fine clothes, polished shoes, and perfume whenever she could afford it. "At least one of my children is worth something," she would say proudly. "Lucy will make me proud." Sophia heard those words every day. They cut deeper than any wound. Lucy, spoiled by her mother's love, grew proud and cruel. She no longer spoke gently to her sister. Each morning, as Sophia swept the compound or fetched water, Lucy would find a reason to mock her. "Don't sweep near my clothes, you sick thing," she would snap. "I don't want your bad luck to touch them." Sometimes she would call her friends to the house. Together they would sit on the veranda, laughing as Sophia limped past them with her bucket of water. "Look at her," Lucy would shout. "Our family's decoration of shame." Her friends would burst into laughter, some covering their mouths, pretending to pity her. "Why is she so thin?" one would whisper. "Because sickness is her best friend," another would reply. Sophia would bow her head and walk away quietly. But when she reached her corner behind the kitchen, tears would fall freely. She had no one to defend her, not even her mother. Sandra only laughed when Lucy mocked her sister. Sometimes she joined in. "Let her feel what she brought to me," she would say. "Pain. That's all she deserves." If visitors came, Sandra introduced Lucy with pride. "My daughter, Lucy, the beautiful one, the one in school." But she never mentioned Sophia. And if anyone asked, she would reply coldly, "She's not well. She's just there." To them, Sophia was invisible. To her mother and sister, she was an outsider in her own home. At night, when everyone slept, Sophia would sit outside under the moonlight, hugging her knees. She would watch the stars and whisper softly, "Why was I born? Why doesn't Mama love me?" Sometimes she dreamed of running away to a place where no one would know her name, where no one would remind her she was unwanted. But she was too weak, too tired, too afraid. In the mornings, she watched Lucy leave for school in her fine uniform and polished shoes. Lucy would wave proudly to her friends on the road, her laughter echoing through the compound. Sophia would stand behind the curtain, her hands clasped tightly, watching until her sister disappeared down the dusty path. Then she would whisper to herself, "One day, I will not be this way forever. One day, God will remember me." But in that moment, there was no sign of hope. Only pain, only rejection, and a silence that filled her heart like an unending storm. Days turned into weeks, and weeks into months. Inside Sandra's house, Sophia's life was like a wound that refused to heal. Every morning before the first cockcrow, she was already awake, sweeping the compound, fetching water, or washing clothes that weren't hers. Her body had grown weak, but she kept pushing herself because she knew what would happen if she didn't. Her mother's voice had become sharper than a knife. Even her silence carried hatred. Sandra no longer looked at Sophia with any sign of pity. She looked at her as one would look at something they regretted owning, like an old piece of furniture that took up too much space. "Move faster," she would shout from the doorway whenever she saw Sophia resting her tired body. "So you want to sleep while others are working? Lazy girl, you think food will fall from the sky." Sophia would whisper softly, "Mama, I'm not feeling well." Sandra would snap, "You've never felt well since the day you came into this world. Sickness and weakness, that's all you know. If I had known, I would have left you at the hospital. Maybe by now I'd be living in peace with Lucy." Those words fell like stones on Sophia's heart, but she never answered back. She would only wipe her tears with the edge of her wrapper and continue sweeping. Lucy was worse. Every small thing became an excuse to humiliate her. "Look at you," Lucy would say, standing in her fine dress. "You can't even clean a room properly. What do you even do right in this house?" Sophia would bend her head, whispering apologies. But Lucy would not stop. Sometimes she would push her shoulder or pour water on the floor just to make her clean again. When her friends visited, Lucy made sure Sophia suffered the most. "Look at my sister," she would tell them, laughing loudly. "She's the one I told you about, the village ghost who's always sick." The girls would laugh and point. She really looks like she came back from the grave," one would joke. Sophia would pretend not to hear, but her hands would tremble as she washed the plates. Her clothes were old and torn, while Lucy's wardrobe was filled with bright dresses and shiny shoes. Lucy ate meat and rich soup, Sophia ate the leftovers, the bones, the cold rice, or sometimes nothing at all. When she got sick, her mother ignored her. If she complained, Sandra would say, "You're not dying. You just want attention. You always want people to pity you. You're a liability, Sophia, and I'm tired of you." One hot afternoon, everything came to a breaking point. Sophia had been coughing since morning. Still, she tried to wash Lucy's clothes and clean the room. But her legs were weak, her head heavy. She had just finished rinsing the last blouse when Lucy came out, frowning. "So you didn't sweep my room?" Lucy shouted. "You lazy thing. I've been waiting since morning. You only know how to fall sick every day." Sophia tried to speak. "I wanted to, but my chest." Lucy cut her off, pushing her aside. "Shut up. You think I care about your chest? You should have died long ago and saved us all this stress." Sandra came out of the kitchen when she heard the noise. "What is it again?" she asked. "Mama, she refused to clean my room," Lucy replied, pointing angrily. "Look at her just standing there like a stick." Sandra turned to Sophia, her face hard. "So now you're too big to do what your sister asked you to do?" "Mama, I tried, but I feel weak," Sophia whispered, her voice barely audible. Sandra hissed. "Weak? Always weak. That's all you ever say. You're not a child anymore, yet you behave like a cripple. I don't even know why I gave birth to a useless thing like you. You've brought me nothing but pain, shame, and debt." Sophia felt her knees shaking. The world around her began to blur. Lucy folded her arms, smirking. "She's pretending again," she said. "Watch, Mama. In a few minutes, she'll start fainting as usual." Sandra folded her hands too, her tone filled with disgust. "Let her faint. Maybe she'll sleep and not wake up this time. That will be peace for me." Sophia tried to speak, but no words came out. Her hands trembled as she clutched her chest. Then suddenly, her eyes rolled back, and she fell to the ground with a soft thud. The bucket of water beside her spilled across the compound. Lucy jumped back, startled. "Mama, she's not moving." Sandra only hissed. "See, that's what I'm talking about. Every little thing. She'll faint like a leaf. Let her lie there. Maybe the earth will finally rest from her trouble." The neighbors, hearing the noise, began to peek through their windows. But Sandra didn't care. She stood there, arms crossed, watching her daughter's lifeless body as if it meant nothing. Lucy looked down at her sister, unsure for a moment. "Mama, what if she's really sick?" Sandra waved her hand. "If she dies, she dies. At least I'll finally be free. I'm tired of feeding sorrow in my own house." And with that, she turned and walked inside. The sun burned hot above, the compound silent except for the faint sound of Sophia's shallow breathing. Her body lay still on the red earth, her face pale, her lips dry. It was in that moment, that quiet, painful moment, that something shifted in the air. For the first time, the earth seemed to pity the girl her own mother had abandoned. But Sandra didn't notice. Her heart, once wounded, had now become stone. And from that day, her hatred for Sophia only deepened, deeper than words could ever describe. Sophia woke up to the sting of the evening air on her face. The sun had gone low, painting the compound in a dull orange glow. Her body ached all over, and her head felt heavy like a stone. Slowly, she sat up, blinking through tears and dust. Her heart pounded weakly, and her palms were still trembling. Lucy was standing a few feet away, her arms folded across her chest, staring at her with a face full of disgust. There was no pity in her eyes, only irritation. Sophia's voice came out soft and shaky. "Lucy, what happened to me? Why did I faint?" Lucy hissed, rolling her eyes. "Did I look like I care what happened to you?" she snapped. "If you die, it's not my business. In fact, I'll be happy if you die. Maybe peace will finally come to this house, and I'll start receiving my blessings again. You and your sickness are blocking everything good in this family." Sophia's lips parted in shock. "Lucy, please don't talk like that." Lucy cut her off, her voice sharp like a knife. "Keep your sorry. Do I look like a watchman to be watching over you? When you're done pretending, stand up and clean my room. And make sure you finish washing my clothes before nightfall." Sophia tried to stand, still dizzy from the fall, but Lucy's words came again, cold and cutting. Rubbish. Look at you, a walking ghost. Nothing good can come from you. Sometimes I even think you're already dead, just moving around to disturb people. I hate the sight of you. She hissed again and turned around, walking toward the house. Finish my work before I come back, she said, without looking back. Sophia's knees gave way, and she sank slowly to the ground, her eyes filling with tears. Her sister's voice echoed in her head over and over. You block my blessings. I'll be happy if you die. She pressed her face into her palms and cried quietly, the tears running down her fingers. Mama, Lucy, she whispered, I'm sorry for causing you people pain. It's not my fault that I'm sick. A voice came from behind, her mother's, cold, bitter, hard. Then whose fault is it, Sophia? Mine? Your sister's? Or your father's? Sophia turned weakly, her eyes red. Mama, please. Sandra folded her arms and shook her head slowly. Don't even try to blame anyone for your sickness. You are the cause of everything bad in this family. You are an evil child sent to destroy my peace. But your plan will not work. Tears rolled down Sophia's face. Mama, please stop saying that. I love you. I never meant to. Sandra's voice grew louder. Enough. You think your sickness will keep me tied to you forever? One day, you'll faint like this and you'll never wake up again. Maybe then I'll finally rest. Your days in this house are numbered. Just wait and see. She hissed and turned back toward the kitchen, muttering curses under her breath. Sophia sat there for a long time after they left her. The compound was quiet except for the soft hum of evening crickets. Her tears fell one by one, soaking the earth beneath her knees. Her chest hurt, not from the fainting, but from the words of the people who were supposed to love her. She lifted her eyes to the fading sky and whispered brokenly, If this is what my life is meant to be, then, God, please give me strength, because I don't know how much longer I can bear this. The wind moved gently through the trees, brushing her face like a faint comfort, but there was no answer, only the sound of her own breathing, fragile and alone. Sophia came home with the thin plastic bag of hospital medicine still warm from her hands. Her legs ached, but the air felt different the moment she stepped into the compound. Voices were low and quick, like someone trying not to be heard. Her chest tightened. On the veranda, a man she had never seen before sat on a low wooden stool. He wore a clean shirt and shoes that had never known mud. He had an easy smile and eyes that looked like they had measured many people before. Sandra stood close to him, her face smoother than it had been in months. Lucy hovered behind, cheeks flushed, pretending calm but shining with a strange light. When Sandra saw Sophia, she called without warmth, Sophia, come. Sophia shuffled forward, the sunlight catching on her pale face. The man looked at her from head to toe. His eyes did not pity. He touched her wrist quickly, then the back of her neck, as if he were reading the pages of a book. He nodded once, a little movement that felt like a verdict. Go inside, Sandra said, and her voice had the tired authority of someone who had decided a thing and would not be argued with. Sophia obeyed. She crossed the threshold and waited by the doorway while the man and her mother spoke in low voices again. She could not hear every word, but the way their mouths moved gave meaning to the silence, bargaining, tallying, choosing. When the man left, he shook Sandra's hand and glanced toward the house as if to mark a place he would return to. Sandra watched him walk away, then turned and smiled at Lucy. The smiles between mother and daughter were small and secret, full of relief and triumph. Sophia stood inside with the doorway wide behind her, and she felt her world swell and shrink at the same time. That night, by the weak flame of the cooking lamp, Sandra told her plainly what would happen. Her words landed like a stone in Sophia's chest. Pack your things, Sandra said. You are going with that man tomorrow. Do not make trouble. There is no argument. This is decided. Sophia's hands shook as she folded the thin wrapper she had worn for years. Mama, why? Her voice broke. Why are you doing this to me? You sold me? I can't go. Sandra's face hardened. Keep quiet. I have told you. Stop your noise. I will not hear your tears tonight. You are leaving tomorrow whether you like it or not. Her voice carried the finality of someone who had exhausted all other roads. We cannot afford you. You are a liability. The man paid well. Lucy will not be held back because of you. Lucy sat at the small stool with the stack of bills spread before her. She counted with quick, excited hands, her lips curved in a smile that did not touch her eyes. Listen to Mama, she said, almost giddy. This is good for us. At last we have breathing space. We can start again. Let her go and be someone else's trouble. Sophia pressed her palms to her face and felt the dampness of new tears. She knelt, not from obedience, but because her knees simply failed her. Mama, please, she whispered. I will be better. I will take my medicine. I will try harder. Don't send me away. Don't. Sandra's reply was short, cruel, and practiced. Enough. Your promises are like empty bowls. We have spent everything on you. You have nothing to give. The man paid my debts. He bought peace for me and success for Lucy. Don't make it harder for us. She pointed, voice sharp. Go and sleep. Tomorrow you will leave. That night Sophia lay on the thin mat and listened to the house breathe. Outside, the wind moved leaves against the roof. Inside, her mother and sister laughed quietly as they planned what to buy, what to fix, and how to show themselves to others with their new money. The sound of coins being counted seemed to hit her like a physical blow. Sophia tried to imagine where she would go. The hospital had been cold but honest. The man's home would be a place of unknown rules. She pictured streets she'd never walked, rooms with curtains she could not lift. Fear sat heavy in her belly, but deeper than fear was a softer thing. Shame. It roared inside her because those who should have loved her had chosen to sell her like a thing. When Lucy came into the room to check the money one more time, she paused by the doorway and looked at Sophia with a strange mixture of triumph and impatience. Remember, she said, voice thin as a reed, don't make us regret this. Make it easy for yourself. Be quiet. Sophia heard the words and wished that even once her mother would look at her as if she were a daughter, not a problem. But no such look came. Lucy's face turned away like a closing door. Before sleep took her, Sophia folded a small bundle of the only clothes she owned. She tied them with trembling fingers and whispered to the dark, not to her mother, not to Lucy, but to a God who had been her companion in empty houses. If I must go, she prayed, let me go with some dignity. Let me leave with a heart that still believes there is kindness somewhere. If there is mercy, let it find me. The house slept around her, but the sound of money and plans echoed long into the night. Sophia's world had narrowed to the small bundle at her side, and the heavy silence of people who had chosen their comfort over her life. Tomorrow would come with the sound of footsteps and a new man's voice at the gate. Tomorrow would decide where her thin life would be held next, by the hands that loved her, or by the hands that paid for silence. The morning sun rose slowly over the village, painting the roofs with a pale gold that carried no warmth. It was the day Sophia would never forget, the day she realized her mother's heart had truly turned to stone. The sound of a car engine broke the quiet. It was deep, smooth, and proud, not like the old vehicles that rattled through the village. When the car stopped at their gate, every eye in the compound turned. It was a shiny black car, clean as new glass. The strange man from yesterday stepped out, dressed neatly, his shoes shining like mirrors. Sandra came out with Lucy behind her. Both were well-dressed, smiling in a way that made Sophia's stomach twist. Sophia stood by the door, holding her small bag tightly. Her hands shook. Tears had already started rolling down her face before anyone said a word. The man looked around briefly before his eyes settled on her. So this is the girl, he asked, adjusting his wristwatch. Sandra nodded, forcing a smile. Yes, she's the one. She's quiet and obedient. She won't give you trouble. Sophia's lips trembled. Mama, please, she whispered, her voice breaking. Please don't send me away. I will work harder. I'll do anything. Please. But Sandra's face was unreadable. Her eyes were dry and cold. Sophia, she said, I told you already. This is not your choice. You are going with him. Be grateful he even wants you. Mama, please. Sophia cried, her knees weak. Don't sell me. I'll get better, I promise. I'll stop being a problem. Please, I don't want to go. Sandra hissed. Enough, she shouted. You've cried enough to fill a river, but tears can't pay debts. You're leaving this house today, and that's final. Lucy stood beside her mother, arms folded, smiling faintly. Stop making noise, she muttered. You should even be happy. Maybe that man will cure your sickness since you've made Mama poor with it. Sophia turned to her sister, tears streaming. Lucy, you too? You want me to go? Lucy shrugged, not meeting her eyes. I've wanted you gone a long time ago. You've been a burden to everyone. Sophia fell on her knees, clutching her bag. Mama, please, she said again. But Sandra only looked at her as one would look at a stranger. Her face was as hard as the earth beneath their feet. All your pleading is like pouring water on stone, Sandra said coldly. Nothing will change. Now stand up and go. The man stepped closer and opened the car door. Enough tears, he said calmly. I don't need your clothes or anything. Just get in the car. You'll have everything you need where you're going. Sophia looked one last time at her mother, hoping, praying that she would change her mind, that she would call her back, that she would say something kind for once. But Sandra only turned her face away, pretending to dust her wrapper. With trembling hands, Sophia opened the car door and stepped inside. She sat at the back seat, still crying, her heart heavy as the car rolled out of the compound. She looked out the window and saw her mother and Lucy still standing there. Lucy was smiling. Her mother did not wave. As soon as the car disappeared down the dusty road, Sandra and Lucy went inside. Lucy dropped the bundle of money on the table, and they both sat down to count it again. Finally, Sandra said with relief, finally, peace has returned to my house. Lucy laughed. She was a curse. Now she's gone and we can live happily again. They cooked a big meal that day, jollof rice, fried meat, and stew rich with oil. Sandra even brought out a bottle of wine she had been keeping for years. They ate, laughed, and toasted as if they had just won a battle. Back in the car, Sophia sat quietly, watching the road through her tears. The trees ran past her eyes in a blur. She didn't know where the man was taking her. Every mile felt longer than the last. She clutched her bag tightly to her chest, praying silently for safety. After what felt like hours, the road changed, from dust to smooth black tar. The noise of the city began to rise around them, cars honking, people shouting, tall buildings shining in the sun. Sophia's eyes widened. She had never seen anything like it in her life. Then, the car turned into a large compound with a tall gate. The building ahead stood like something from a dream, tall, white, and beautiful, with flowers lining the walkway and glass windows that caught the sun like mirrors. Sophia stared, unable to speak. So this is where he lives? She thought. Her hands were shaking, not from fear now, but from disbelief. When she stepped out, two maids in neat uniforms came to meet her. They smiled gently, something she was not used to. One of them took her bag. You're welcome, she said softly. Come inside. You must be tired. Sophia followed them in, her eyes moving everywhere. The shining floor, the soft chairs, the tall curtains, the quiet hum of air that smelled of wealth. The man spoke to one of the maids before leaving. Make sure she rests. Give her food and clean clothes, he said. Then he looked at Sophia and added, You're safe here. Don't be afraid. For the first time that day, someone's voice held no anger. Sophia nodded slowly, still unsure what to say. The maids led her to a large room, bigger than her mother's entire house. The bed was soft and white, the air cool, and there was a mirror shining on the wall. Sit down, one of them said kindly. Relax your body. You're safe now. Sophia sat on the bed, still holding her bag, still trembling. Her eyes roamed the room in silence. She didn't know what tomorrow would bring, but for the first time in her life, the air around her didn't smell of hatred or insult. And as she lay back slowly on the soft bed, she whispered to herself, maybe, just maybe my suffering is finally over. But deep inside, her heart was still unsure, because in her world, peace had always come with pain close behind. Days turned into weeks, and slowly Sophia began to see that life had a different face from the one she had always known. The house where she now lived was nothing like her mother's. Here, the air smelled of peace. No shouting, no insults, no mocking laughter. The maid spoke to her with respect, and food was given to her with care. Every morning, they knocked gently at her door to wake her, not with a slap or a harsh word, but with warmth she had never felt before. The man who had brought her there, Mr. Philip, was not cruel as she had feared. He was a quiet man in his early 30s, tall, soft-spoken, and loved by everyone who worked for him. His face carried the kind of calm that could silence a storm. To outsiders, he was known as a successful businessman with companies scattered across cities, but inside, he was a man with a heart that felt deeply for others. He first saw Sophia in the village one quiet afternoon. He had driven there on a business errand, but what caught his attention was not the people he came to meet. It was the thin girl sitting by a broken fence, her eyes swollen from tears, her clothes torn and faded. Something in her face struck him deeply, not pity alone, but a strange pull he couldn't explain. When he asked one of the villagers about her, they told him her name and who her mother was, Sandra, the woman who hated her own child. He didn't believe it at first. How could a mother hate a child so much? But when he finally met Sandra, he saw the truth for himself. That day, when Sandra and Lucy stood smiling beside him, treating him like a buyer and not a visitor, his heart ached. He watched how they looked at Sophia, as though she were a stain they wanted to wipe off. When Sandra said coldly, "She's useless to us, but if you want her, you can take her," something inside him shifted. He saw the greed in her eyes, the hunger for money that blinded her from seeing her own blood. So he agreed, not because he wanted to buy Sophia, but because he wanted to save her. He paid Sandra more than she asked for, not out of obligation, but out of silent anger. He wanted her to see what she had thrown away. Now, sitting in his big office in the city, Philip often thought about that day. He couldn't forget the tears on Sophia's face as she climbed into his car, clutching her small bag like it was all she had left in the world. He didn't know what to do with her at first. All he knew was that he couldn't return her to the people who had broken her. So, the next morning, he took her to a hospital in the city. When the doctor examined her, they discovered that most of her sickness was not born of disease. It was born of neglect, hunger, and pain. She was weak, malnourished, and emotionally shattered. Philip paid for every treatment, ensuring she received proper care. Weeks later, Sophia began to change. The color slowly returned to her skin, her body grew stronger, and her eyes, once dull and hopeless, began to hold light again. The nurses loved her gentle nature. She spoke softly, always grateful, never demanding. Philip visited often, sometimes bringing fruit or books. He would sit quietly beside her bed, asking about how she felt. Sophia, shy at first, would smile faintly and say, "I feel better, sir." "Thank you." He would nod, watching her closely, wondering how someone so hurt could still be so humble. One afternoon, as he drove back from the hospital, Philip thought deeply. He had met many people in his life, rich, powerful, educated, yet none had touched his heart the way this simple village girl did. There was something pure about her suffering, something innocent in her silence. Back in the village, Sandra and Lucy had already forgotten her. With the money Philip gave them, life suddenly became sweet. Sandra paid all her debts. She painted the house, bought new chairs, and replaced the leaking roof. Lucy went back to school with new clothes, a new phone, and a new pride that filled her steps. They ate what they wanted, laughed when they pleased, and spent money like it would never finish. In the evenings, they would sit outside their newly painted house, talking about how life had finally smiled on them. If anyone asked about Sophia, Sandra would wave her hand dismissively. "She's gone," she'd say coldly. "Someone took her. Maybe she's finally useful somewhere." They never mentioned her name again. But far away in the city, the same girl they sold like a burden was slowly becoming whole again. Every morning, Sophia prayed for strength. Every night, she whispered words of gratitude for the strange man who had changed her fate. She couldn't understand why he was so kind to her, but deep down she felt safe, safer than she had ever been in her mother's house. Philip never treated her like a servant. He treated her like someone whose life mattered. The maids adored her, the cook always saved the best meals for her, and soon, Sophia began to smile again. Not because her pain was gone, but because she finally realized she was no longer alone in this world. Her life, once filled with tears and curses, was quietly turning into a blessing, one she never saw coming. And though she didn't know it yet, the man who bought her freedom would soon become the man whose love would rewrite her story forever. 3 years passed, and the winds of time washed Sophia's old life away like footprints after rain. The girl who once knelt in dust and begged for mercy was no longer the weak, trembling child from the village. She had grown into a confident woman, graceful, calm, and full of quiet strength. Her skin glowed with health, and her eyes now carried light where sorrow used to live. Under Mr. Philip's care, Sophia's life transformed completely. After she recovered, he helped her finish her education. She proved herself smart, disciplined, and dedicated, qualities Philip admired deeply. When she graduated, he offered her a position in one of his companies, starting as an assistant in the administrative department. At first, Sophia was shy among the city workers, but her humility and gentle heart soon won everyone's respect. She worked hard, never complained, and always treated everyone with kindness. Within a year, she was promoted, and before long, she became one of the most trusted staff in the entire company. To Philip, she was no longer just the sick village girl he once rescued. She had become someone special, someone whose presence calmed him. In meetings, his eyes often drifted to her as she spoke with confidence. In quiet moments, her laughter softened his heart in ways he couldn't explain. Whenever he was around her, something inside him rested. For the first time in years, he felt peace. Their friendship grew naturally. Long talks after work, laughter during dinner, moments of silence that needed no words. He shared his fears, his losses, his dreams, and she listened like no one else ever had. Sophia, in turn, told him everything about her past, the pain, the rejection, her mother, and Lucy. She spoke without bitterness, only gratitude that life had given her a second chance. And through those quiet nights and gentle days, love found its way between them, not rushed, not forced, but pure and strong. One cool Sunday evening, they sat together on the balcony of Philip's mansion. The sky was soft with the color of sunset, and a gentle breeze carried the scent of flowers through the air. A bottle of red wine sat between them, the glasses half full. Birds were flying home, and the world seemed at peace. Sophia leaned back on the couch, her eyes glowing softly under the fading light. "Sir," she said, her voice low and tender, "sometimes I still wonder why you helped me. You changed my life completely. I don't even know how to thank you." Philip smiled, turning his gaze toward her. "Sophia, you've already thanked me," he said. She shook her head, tears rising. "No, I mean it. You found me when nobody cared. You fed me when I had no strength. You made me feel human again. Only God can reward you for what you've done for me." He laughed quietly, setting down his glass. "Don't thank me again," he said softly. "I didn't do anything special. I only did what I knew was right." Their eyes met. For a long moment, the air between them felt still, warm and unspoken. Then Philip reached out, gently lifted her chin, and pressed his lips against hers. It was a kiss filled with calmness, gratitude, and love unplanned. From that night, their friendship blossomed into something deeper. Within months, Philip proposed, and Sophia, trembling with emotion, said yes. Their wedding became the talk of the city, elegant, beautiful, and full of grace. People whispered in awe about the mysterious young woman who had captured the heart of one of the most respected men in the country. None of them knew her story, but Philip did, and he loved her all the more for it. One bright afternoon, some months after their marriage, Sophia sat in her husband's office reviewing interview files. She now served as the human resource officer for one of the company's main branches. Her name carried weight. Mrs. Sophia Phillip, the kind but firm woman everyone admired. The next applicant walked in, a young woman in a smart dress, with confidence and a polished smile. She looked at Sophia briefly and sat down, not recognizing her. Sophia lifted her eyes from the papers. The name on the file made her hand freeze. Lucy Sandra. For a moment, Sophia's breath caught in her throat. Her heart raced, but she quickly steadied herself. Lucy smiled politely. "Good afternoon, Ma," she said, not knowing the face before her was the sister she and her mother had once thrown away like dirt. Sophia looked at her quietly, at the face she once knew so well. Lucy had changed. She was older, still proud, but her eyes held the restlessness of someone who had seen better days. Her voice carried a touch of desperation beneath its practiced calm. "Good afternoon," Sophia replied softly. "Please have a seat." Lucy nodded and sat, unaware that destiny had just brought her before the very person she once mocked, insulted, and sold. As Sophia opened the file and began the interview, her mind was calm, not with anger, but with something far deeper. The quiet strength of someone who has survived everything and still found love, grace, and peace. And as Lucy spoke, Sophia realized the truth, that sometimes life does not forget. It only waits for the right moment to let justice speak.